Good morning, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Mental Growth, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around mental illness, teaching healthy mental mannerisms, and improve overall health for everyone within the community. I am your host, Chelsie Brewer. Today's episode is sponsored by Emerging Black News, who can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and emergingblack.weebly.com. Today's episode is about sexually abused women and how the Reclaim Global program can impact them in positive ways. Every 98 seconds, someone in the U.S. is sexually assaulted. That means every single day, more than 570 people experience sexual violence in this country. Sexual violence engulfs our culture, from violent rape scenes on hit TV shows to sexist dress codes that reinforce rape culture. From famous athletes telling young girls they're supposed to be silent, to near daily stories of sexual assaults on college campuses. From a former Olympic doctor accused of sexually abusing more than 100 women, to the President of the United States who has been publicly accused of sexually assaulting more than 15 women and was recorded boasting that he grabs women by the pussy. All of these examples create a culture that reinforces the normalization of sexual violence. Since the first step towards preventing sexual violence is understanding the reality of it, we have a very special guest to share resources and help us understand sexual abuse in depth. She is the founder of Siva Realty in Jacksonville, Florida, and she is a facilitator for the Reclaim Global program. Please welcome to the show, Eva Maaieh.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. Such a pleasure having you on today's show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
So, Eva, tell me how you found Reclaim Global and became a part of it.
I first heard about the Reclaim Global program with my cousin. She has a friend, and she went to a church of Jacksonville, and they called it Reclaim Sunday. And people were up there and giving their testimonies. And so that's when she first heard about the program. So she told me and her sisters, who she knows, we were all three abused. And that's how I first found out about it.
And how has this, your experience affected you as you've grown to an adult?
Wow. I can go on and on about this because it has affected every area of my life. Since my experience was I was molested at 8 years old by a cousin. At 13, again, by another cousin. At 16, I was sexually harassed by a security officer at a place that I was working. And then at 19, I was raped in college. So every steps of those abuse, it just altered my life in a different way. I became depressed. I actually put a really fun mask on and became a comedian, but inside I was very sad and broken. Straight A student, great in school, but when it came to having personal relationships and just my friendships, I was sad all the time. I had trust issues. It was just an up and down emotional roller coaster. I was sad. I was angry. I was confused. I was hurting. I felt crazy at times. I felt like I was constantly battling myself. Felt like I had more than one personality at times. It's just so many things to name. I attempted suicide several times, swallowed a whole bunch of pills, just wanting the pain to stop, not even knowing at the time that it was coming from my abuse.
So you named several different incidences where you were affected by this. When did you come in to seek the help with Reclaim Global?
Well, I'm going to go back a little bit. The first time I told my mom and dad, I was 13. Okay. After the second time it happened. And she took me to therapy the very first business day because I was running away from home, sneaking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, and she knew I was a quiet child, and I just started acting out. And I just want to make a point that that's a very important thing, that a lot of kids change after they've been abused, and parents look at it as, oh, they're just a teenager, or they're quote unquote fast, or they're crazy or, just making excuses for their behavior when in reality, something bad has happened to alter their children. And parents need to understand that and pay attention more, that if something happens to their child or they just one day come back from school and they're withdrawn, they need to ask questions like, what's going on? What happened? But I first sought, so after that, I was going to therapy from 13 all the way till my 30s. And so the first time I heard about Reclaim was in January of 2011. So that's when I first came through the program.
Okay. So you've been with them for quite some time now.
Yes.
You mentioned that the parents need to pay more attention to their children. If a parent notices these behaviors, what would you recommend would be the best way for them to approach their children and get them to open up about, what they've been through?
Well, the first thing I would recommend is to be calm. Because if you approach a child, especially a child who's just been traumatized, by saying, what happened? What's wrong? What happened? Why are you acting like this? Or, what did you do? They're already feeling shame and guilt for what just happened. So stay calm. Hey, honey, I noticed that you've been, acting a little different. What's going on? Talk to me. Tell me what happened. And of course, they're going to be like, nothing. They're not going to want to say because they're scared. And you just, talk to mommy. Tell me what's going on because I love you and I want to make sure that you're good. And whatever's going on, mommy will help you. I'll take care of you. I'll protect you. And just constantly letting the child know that whatever it is that, once the child lets them know of what's going on, try not to overreact because it'll put a fear in them that they did something wrong. Right. And it's hard when it's the parents that's abusing them, the mother or the father that's abusing them. That's why the teachers in school need to pay attention. Neighbors need to pay attention. Family members need to pay attention. They say it takes a village to raise kids.
Absolutely.
The village needs to pay attention and stop blaming it on these kids are just acting out or just brushing it off and looking the other direction. We have to start paying more attention to what's going on around us.
Being intentional with our parenting, for
Absolutely. But, in regards to that, if a mother or a woman has been sexually abused or raped or physically or verbally or any type of abuse, they don't know how to parent in a healthy way because they've only had unhealthy behaviors or unhealthy examples. And no matter how much they try to hold it together or want to do better than their parents, I'll give you an example. My parents came from an abusive background, but my mom and my dad came together and agreed that they would not do that to their kids, that
Right.
They would give them everything that they lacked. So we got the attention and the love, but because it was unbalanced, because it was coming from a place of fear and brokenness, they gave us the kind of love that gave us still insecurities. We were still broken. We got love. We were always told how beautiful and smart we were, but we didn't have the confidence and the self-love and the confidence that you would have from somebody who's healthy teaching you that. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it does.
So it was like a total extreme from the other side, from total brokenness to, trying to be on the healthy spectrum, but it still caused a lack of self-esteem. I think, too, a lot of times we teach kids stranger danger. And they may think, oh, it's just my neighbor. That's not my stranger.
Right.
But we can't teach kids stranger danger anymore because the ones who are abusing are not strangers.
This is true. Right.
It's family. It's friends. It's people who are the closest to you. I tell people, when you're telling your kids, don't let anyone touch your private parts are your head to your feet, not just your mouth, your vagina, or your penis, and your butt. No, it's your head to your toe. You have a personal space that no one should enter or even try to penetrate at all, period.
Right.
So it's a whole new world, and we have to teach our kids different and pay attention. If they're like, I don't want to go to uncle's house anymore, I don't want to go to auntie's, because women are perpetrating too.
Right.
It's not just men. We have we have people that their mothers are perpetrating them. So, we have to just teach them that if anyone makes you feel uncomfortable, come tell me. But you have to give your kids a safe place to come. If they see you're all spazzed out, and any little thing just sets you off,
They're not gonna
or you're
talk to
crazy
you.
as hell.
Right.
You know, my parents weren't even like that. But I thought to myself, I don't want to tell my dad because he'll kill him. And I don't want my dad to go to jail. When I first came through Reclaim, I was like, I became paranoid because my abuse was my abuse. But when I started to hear like everyone else's abuse, I'm like, oh my God, they'll get you anywhere. Like, it like freaked me out. I'm like, anywhere. I mean, there were so many stories that it was like, oh my gosh, you know, and my boyfriend at the time, he had kids, and I was like, oh my God, you know, you tell me if anyone touches you, and if anyone touches you, I'll kill them. And I meant it.
Right.
But afterwards, I was like,
Kind of scary to
I
the
went
kid.
back to them
Yeah.
and I said, listen, you know, I told you I would kill him. I'm sorry I told you that. I won't do that, but I'll make sure that you're protected and that nothing will happen to you. And don't worry about me. I'll make sure I'm not going to go to jail, because that's the first thing they think about is they want to protect the other person. So it's not something you're taught in school. You know what I mean? You're not taught how to talk to your children. You're not taught what to look out for. And this world has gotten so crazy, like everything's sexualized.
Well, I mean, in natural setting, we're sexual human beings, so it shouldn't be
Absolutely.
shunned upon that we're
No.
these sexual human beings in the first place, but of teaching those boundaries of what. Yes, you can be sexual, you know, you can be naked in your room, you know, that's what I tell with my girls, you know, you're allowed to be free for all in your room. That's your place. But once you come out of that room, you know, you need to have some clothes on because we have a man in the house, or, you know, just those type of boundaries that they should know. And you did point out, you know, like not just teaching them about their private parts, but their whole body, like being their space, and, you know, people not, it's reminding me of my nephew. He is 2, and he's one of those kids that he doesn't want you to touch him. Like, even if he does know you, it's no, like, don't touch me at all. And I'm so proud of my sister that she has like continued to raise him. Like, okay, he told you no, like, stop touching him.
Right.
Like, he doesn't want you to hug him. He doesn't want you loving on him. Just leave him alone and give him his personal space.
That's good.
Because my girls are quite the opposite. They're very friendly. They hug everybody. They're climbing people's laps. And it's, you know, having to teach those kids those boundaries to not cross.
And that's very important, too, because, like, I remember when I was younger, you know, it was before all this time, this internet and all this stuff. It's like, you know, you go to someone's house and they're like, come give me a hug. And you're like, I don't want to. And your parents like, go give them a hug.
Right. Exactly.
Go give them a hug.
Let your aunt kiss you.
You know what I mean? And so pay attention. If your kids are like, I don't want to touch them, or I don't want to, you know, go, then don't make them.
Right. Well, to tag on to that, we just have to make sure that, you know, we're talking about people who have been abused, and, you know, we can't go change the past. We can't save them. But what we can do is prevent children in the future of being in these circumstances. And we won't be able to save them all, but what we can do is try to save as many as I can by putting in those preventative measures, letting them have a voice. If someone, you know, they don't want to hug someone, don't make them. If they're saying they're uncomfortable and don't want to go to so-and-so's house, don't make them. Build a bond with them. Take them on dates, especially if you have multiple children. Spend focused time with that one child to build those relationships, so that way when you want to have those conversations, it's not an uncomfortable, like, okay, mom's never in my room, so why is she in here right now trying to talk to me? And it would be more normal, you know, okay, mom's just hanging out and we're just talking, and then the topic comes up, for them to be more comfortable to open up. So it's really important just to build those foundations, and for healthy relationships.
And you're teaching them what a healthy relationship looks like when you're doing that.
Right.
You know, you're teaching them how to feel safe and how to have a healthy relationship and make healthy decisions and have healthy boundaries. I know, like, when you're abused, you don't have boundaries. I know I didn't, because my boundaries and my space was, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Shared, or
it was
open, or
it was stolen. You know, that's not might be the right word, but they just totally penetrated my space. And so I just didn't have healthy boundaries. And because I felt so much shame and guilt, I stayed in friendships and relationships longer than I needed to, because I always felt like I was doing something wrong. So I was trying to fix things that weren't my problem to fix. So it's just so many different avenues of how it affects you. And everyone's different, but we're all the same. But it looks different. Brokenness is brokenness. There's no way to measure you're more broken than me or I'm more broken than you. Brokenness is brokenness. And healthy relationships are very important if there's healthy people involved having them.
Right.
So it starts like sometimes we see it where it's generational. It's like the grandma was abused. Then their daughters were abused and they didn't do anything about it. Then the girls were abused because their moms, were on drugs or having men come, and the men are coming in and raping their daughters after having sex with the mom. And then now they're on drugs and they're out in the streets and they're doing whatever. And it just cycle continues. So it's imperative that it stops today. And someone in that family needs to get healing so the cycle doesn't continue.
Absolutely.
As abused victims, and you have kids, you end up being so on the opposite side of the spectrum of protecting them to where you don't realize you're instilling a fear in that child. Don't let anyone touch you. You're
being overbearing.
Well, the fear in you and the little girl in you that is angry or hurt or scared is now pushing that on the kids without realizing it. So then now your kids are growing up paranoid.
Right.
Not understanding, you're not even understanding that now you've put paranoia in the kids by being overprotective because you're functioning from a place of fear.
Right.
And it's not healthy fear. You know what I mean? Right. Like if you get robbed, God forbid, and you walk down the street and you get robbed, you'll never walk the street again the same way as someone who's never been robbed.
Right.
You're going to constantly be paranoid, always have that. It's like even 20 years from now, you're going to still walk down the street with a certain gut feeling, like a tension in your gut, because at any minute you're like, something's going to happen. And you may just be walking normal on the phone, but you're inside because you haven't dealt with it or whatever is still anxious. And so you'll never walk the same again, freely, not paying attention. When you're sexually abused, you never walk the streets or your life the same again.
Anytime there has been research that has shown, I'm a behaviorist, that any childhood trauma or even in adolescence that a child or an adolescent goes through changes their brain chemically.
Absolutely.
Even if it's only a little bit, like they think different, they're different from you had said it before, like every situation you had, those 4 different incidents, there was another time where it's like it changed something inside of you. So it's definitely the trauma makes those changes, and then we don't do anything to adjust it back to what the balance should be.
Right.
So it's definitely mindful to just...
Because no one knows.
Right.
No one understands that it just altered. When I was 8 years old, my cousin, while I was asleep, my cousin got on top of me. And I'll never forget, he was trying to penetrate me. And he said, "Is it in? Is it in?" And I remember, like, I can picture myself there. I could tell you what pajamas I had on. I was there, and all of a sudden, I just focused at the ceiling. I just remember looking up at the ceiling. I focused on the ceiling, and at that point, I left my body. It's kind of like PTSD.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Your brain isn't wired for this, so it doesn't know what to do. So your brain goes into survival mode. So as he's on top of me, and I'm feeling the pressure against my clitoris, like of him trying to get it in, I'm just spaced out, not even there. I'm not even there. But then what came out of that is I started masturbating.
After that
because
incident.
He stimulated me.
Right.
So I started masturbating every night. And I didn't know what sex was. I was sheltered. So I would start, and it's funny because it's not funny, but thinking back, those big fat Crayola markers that sometimes they would smell. I don't know, you're younger than me,
yes.
but I would use that. And I wouldn't insert it because he didn't insert, but I would use that and rub it against my clit in the same way his penis was rubbing against me. And I didn't know that. And then I became an adult still masturbating to go to sleep and thinking that I'm just highly sexual. And was masturbating, and it would not just be one time, it would be constant orgasming after another. And I didn't orgasm when he was molesting me, but he stimulated it and it felt good.
Right.
So I didn't realize that 8-year-old was still controlling my life as an adult. to even after I'm having an intimate relationship, I'm masturbating after sex.
Yeah.
But after I came to Reclaim, I realized that that's what was going on. And then I was able to free myself of that. And then I was able to stop. So I didn't even realize. You know what I mean?
Right. The behaviors.
So if I do it, I do it because I want to, not because I have to and it's controlling me and I don't know what's controlling me.
Right.
And it's like I'm doing it and I'm just like not even present. And then even while I'm intimate, I didn't know. I found out later that he was like, you're not even present. I'm just thinking like, I'm all this and I'm just...
But you weren't
But
even
I wasn't
present
even present.
in your mind.
And a man can feel that. Mm-hmm. A man can feel if you're just acting it out. And I thought I was there.
You think they think that.
I thought I was there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But he knew I wasn't. And when he kept telling me and saying, I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm all in. But after I connected with my little girl inside of me and freed myself, the first time we made love after that was like the first time I've ever made love. I actually was present. And
That's
I was
amazing.
just like,
Recovery.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wow. Like, you see what I'm saying? And I didn't know that. But that's how much it affects us.
Right.
And that's just one thing. It's just in so many different ways.
Most definitely. So I recently wrote a blog with Emerging Black News on childhood adversities and the trauma and how that can affect, their brain development, their capabilities of loving and trusting, committing. For someone who has identified that they have been through these things, what is a way that they can seek help to make them whole again?
Well, if you're talking about children, whoever they're talking to, like, therapists or, teachers, parents, you have to remind them that they're innocent, that they didn't do anything wrong. No matter what they didn't do anything wrong. A lot of women, especially teenagers, they may get date raped. Or somebody they know, rapes them or at a party, and they feel guilty. Well, I was drinking, or, I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have done that. We let them know, listen, if you're laying right here on this table, butt naked, legs spread open, it does not give anyone the right to touch you. And we remind them that they had the right to say no, even if they did not fight the perpetrator off of them. As an adult, they can come to Reclaim to help them. I've been through years and years and years of therapy, been on Prozac, and I don't even know if they give Prozac out anymore. They've got so many new drugs, but I've been on so many medication for depression. And even on my 14th birthday, my parents were dropping me off to the Mental Health Resource Center. I wasn't crazy. I was hurting. I was scared. I was confused. I didn't understand what I was feeling inside because no one really makes it a point to connect the fact that you're feeling these things here because of what happened back then. Nobody really teaches us to make those connections, but at Reclaim Global, we do. We break it down to everyone of not having these healthy emotions that you're supposed to have and when you're born and as you're being raised, and how that affects you as an adult, actually through your adolescence and in your adulthood. And being abused, you stop growing emotionally. So when you stop growing emotionally, it's like you're a broken child having an adult life. That doesn't work. It's imbalanced. So you start to see childhood behaviors come out of you, even in raising kids, in your relationships. It's hard to maintain your emotions. That's one of the big things. It's hard to maintain your emotions because your inner child is raging inside because she's not heard. She doesn't have a voice. She still doesn't feel safe. She's scared. She's alone, and she still feels her perpetrator on top of her. And we stuff her down. We act like she doesn't exist. So we try to move on with our life while we're hearing these screams inside of us, this excruciating pain, this discomfort inside of us as we're trying to live a normal life. We're going to school to get our degrees. We're married. We're raising children. But inside, we're crazy feeling. We feel crazy. And so we do everything we can to stuff and muffle that noise by drinking, smoking, drugs, sex, food, overachieving in school, pretending like it doesn't exist, but it's there in the inside of us. And all we have to do is actually just face it and deal with it and help that little girl to recognize she was innocent and she should have been protected and she should have been helped and she should not have experienced it and she didn't do anything wrong and she deserves to heal. And once we teach the participants that, when they come through our class that they were innocent, they didn't do anything wrong. And then we give them a voice because some people never told. Some people who told were told to shut up or were blamed for it or were called a liar. I was told, I was helped, I was still screwed up. And I use that as an example because some people feel like if they told and somebody would have listened to them, they would have been better. I told, and my parents supported me, and we confronted my abusers. But I was still screwed up because all those years of therapy never addressed or acknowledged that my behaviors and how I'm feeling was connected to my abuse. And when we help make that connection, a lot of freedom comes out of that. And then we help them deal with the rage that's caught because sadness turns to rage. Unheard sadness turns to rage. And then there's times where something minor will make you snap. Something minor will make you snap. Or you feel like you can't control the situation or you lose control very easily. You try to be better. But then all of a sudden something inside of you that feels bigger than you takes over you.
That's usually the indication that there's something deeper going on.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. And we blame ourselves for losing control.
Right.
And then it's a constant circle. It's a constant cycle. You're redoing it over and over and over again until you turn around and you face it. And you acknowledge that little girl. I use an example of, imagine, like with my abuse being at 8 and 13 and 16 and 19, imagine kids that age being around me, screaming for me, help me, help me, help me, I need you, help me, help me, help me. And they're all over me, like hanging on me, help me, help me, help me. And I'm like trying to avoid them. Just leave me. And I'm trying to focus and move on in life and have a healthy life. And I have all these screaming kids yelling at me and screaming to where I can't even sleep at night because it's just, they're everywhere screaming. That's how we're moving on with our life.
So we're moving forward in a nightmare.
Absolutely. That's great. That's a great way to say it.
So we talked about different ways that we want to heal these people, and our main focus on women. Where can they go to seek help to address and focus on the sexual abuse?
That's a great question. At Reclaim Global, we offer support groups. It's actually a 4-day intensive support group. The support group usually takes about 12 to 16 weeks, just depending on how many participants. And we put it all together in 4 days. It starts on a Thursday at 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., and it ends on a Sunday. So the times are, and the participants have to be there the whole time. So they have to commit to those 4 full days. And it's Thursday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., Friday from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And in those 4 days, they walk out of here with a whole new vision of how to conduct their life. They're healed, they have a voice, they have confidence, and now they're not going to leave here and their life's going to be perfect because they just came out of a tornado.
Right.
Of a life. But they have the tools. We give them tools. I always say we give you a tool belt of tools to go out and build your home. You need tools to build. So you're going back out to rebuild your life.
Starting over.
Absolutely. And you'll start to see that some of the people in your life should have never been in your life. You know how you hang out with who you are? Right. And if you're broken and toxic, you're going to hang out with broken people. So you start to clean up every area of your life. And you have the tools and a clearer outlook. You're dealing with it in wholeness as opposed to dealing in life in brokenness.
Absolutely. Miss Eva, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure having you here. I want to thank my listeners out there for taking the time out of your day to tune in. Catch us next Thursday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Mental Growth. And as we bring this episode to a close, I want you to repeat this after me. I am my thoughts, and I choose what I think. I am fully present and in the moment. I have a mind free of worry and anxiety. I am happy. I am the powerful creator of my life. I am strong. I matter. I am worthy. I deserve to love myself more. I am thriving. Until next time, children. For more information on how to heal from childhood sexual abuse or assault, please visit their website at www.reclaimglobal.org or follow them on Facebook. Okay, so I just want to take a moment and reach out to my listeners today. This has been a very in-depth conversation. Miss Eva has explained a lot of different symptoms that and behaviors that can show up in someone's life if they have been sexually abused. So if you are having issues with anxiety and depression, if you have felt, resentment toward your parents or whoever the perpetrator was, if you feel like you have stuck this down, as she has said, to quiet that child inside, or even if you feel like you have moved on from this but have never spoke on it with a sexual abuse therapist, I would like you guys to reach out and check out the website and get more information. These are free resources to you guys. This is free help to become whole again. This is exactly why I am doing this podcast. This is why I'm reaching out to the community, because I want us to grow together. So in order to heal, in order to move forward, we need to address those things that we don't want to talk about. We need to address those demons inside of us, and we need to face them full force. As she said, this is an intense therapy. It is 4 days, and it is something you have to commit to. But this is why I'm doing this show, you guys. It's time to commit to yourself for self-care, improvement, growth. So reach out to Miss Eva on the website at reclaimglobal.org. That's reclaim, RECLAIMGLOBAL.org to get more information on these free resources to help us move forward and grow from this.